Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these segments, I'll bring you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network, as well as the Healthcare Now radio network. For this episode, my 176th episode, we have a great guest, Alex Lennox-Miller, Senior Analyst from Chilmark Research. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you, Justin. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. When I had the opportunity presented to me, I was, just ecstatic because I've been tracking you guys for many years, and certainly looking forward to Chilmark Strategic Insights for decades now at this point. So thank you for being here, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure. Like you said, Chilmark has been doing healthcare IT research and analysis and consulting for a long time. I'm the latest analyst to join the team. I'm very excited to be here, to be with Chilmark, to be with you. I'm coming from a background in process improvement, performance improvement, analytics. I was the head of analytics for performance improvement for a healthcare network in northern central Massachusetts. And Chilmark is a really exciting opportunity for me, and I'm really excited to be able to share our research and our insights with your audience.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Alex. So, not to get off topic right in the beginning of the show, but I'm actually from central Massachusetts. I'm from Amherst, Mass. So
all right.
Where are you from, or where did you work?
I'm originally actually from right outside of Boston. I grew up in Somerville, Massachusetts. I worked for Leahy Health System out of Burlington.
I love it. I love Leahy, and that whole healthcare infrastructure up there is terrific. So I didn't realize that, but even more excited to have you on the show now. So let's start off with something near and dear to my heart. I know near and dear to your heart, but primary care in America. So let's dive right into, what new or innovative primary care models have you seen that increases care quality or increases care access for patients and lower healthcare costs? Some of that exciting stuff that we're trying to really do and bend the cost curve. So what do you see out there?
Sure. Well, I think there's a couple of different areas that are really exciting and really interesting to me. You kind of have to break it up into areas that have the technology has been around for a while, but the reimbursement is catching up to it. That's something like telehealth, like some of the remote monitoring platforms that are out there. The technology for telehealth really isn't new, but the adoption has been relatively slow. Because the insurance reimbursements, the CMS, Medicare, Medicaid reimbursements haven't been there. That's slowly been changing and has changed a lot over the past year or two. So you've got Medicaid, fully reimbursing it, Medicare preparing to reimburse much more generously in 2020. Something like that offers so much more access for patients. You combine that with some of the really new technology in AI and ML analytics, AI symptom trackers, the ability of AI and ML analytics to interface with remote care and remote monitoring platforms, with the growth in pretty low-cost wearables and home medical equipment, which again couples with the changes in reimbursements for DME. Those are things that offer people a lot more access, that give people much more opportunity to get care as they need it, as the circumstances dictate. Primary care appointments are sometimes tough to come by. Sometimes the wait is significant, and especially when you're talking about consumers who have a chronic care condition, who are in a post-acute or post-surgical condition, the ability to retain visibility on them, to be getting data on them, to be interacting with them from home on an ongoing basis without needing them to come in for an appointment is, huge. It's groundbreaking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Actually, a handful of us got together about 2 years ago and started a new health plan in Georgia. It's basically around direct primary care. However, we take it to the nth degree and we wrap around 250 specialists and full insurance products. And what's really cool is every single member of the plan actually has telehealth, secure messaging, and texting with their physician.
Mm-hmm.
Physicians in with their doctor. And that was the biggest thing that came out of our think tank recently even was patients like telehealth for the most part, but
Yep.
they actually want it with their doctor. They don't want to rant with it,
Mm-hmm.
not in all cases, but they don't want it randomly with a doctor. They want it with their doctor. They also want their medical records to be available with their doctor. So it's kind of taking telehealth now to the next two steps forward.
Well, I think you've really gotten to the core of the issue with some of the solutions or some of the models that exist parallel to primary care when you're talking about, for example, retail care clinics, when you're talking about independent telehealth networks. They're great, for access. They're great for people being able to get care, on demand as needed, but you lose that relationship with your provider. You lose that continuity of medical record. To some extent, that may be fixed over the next few years as, rules about interoperability shift as some of these standards open up. But that provider relationship is really invaluable. And the more you can maintain that, the more you can have that as part of as a supplemental to your primary care provider as opposed to a replacement, I think the happier everybody is.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we're actually, at this point, dropping costs by, not even bending the cost curve, but by 15, 20%, 30%.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, you put that primary care conduit in place, you really can reduce the cost of care overall. So.
Yeah, and you reduce the burden on the provider also. I mean, the amount of time that they have to spend on asynchronous appointments, remote messaging, remote monitoring, is just so much less. And the more you can take those burdens off providers and off staff, the more time you then open up for them to spend time in clinical care.
Yeah, completely agree. So what's the biggest driver for new models of primary care, of a primary care practice or primary care today? Why do we need it? What does the timeline look like? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, this was a major question 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now it's an urgent question. Mm-hmm. 5 years from now, I think we're talking about something existential. Right. I mean, we've got 50% of RNs that are over 50. We've got 52% of MDs that are over 55. We've got almost 30% of primary care providers who are over 60 with an average retirement age of 65. We're already, far below what we need to meet primary care demand now. Right. The Kaiser Family Foundation stats show there isn't a state in the union that's meeting more than 77% of their population primary care needs. Yeah. 31 states are below 50%. And that's now. In 5 to 10 years, as all of these providers retire, as they aren't replaced because new medical school graduates increasingly aren't pursuing primary care specializations, aren't looking for work in primary care, that's only going to get worse. And that manifests itself in patient outcomes. It's statistics, it's studies, they all show that having good primary care, having that good initial point of care is essential for best outcomes. When you don't have it, chronic care conditions get worse, people get admitted more, ED usage goes up, and those are the things that drive the cost of care. If we can keep people, treated, if we can keep chronic care conditions treated, if we can prevent them from becoming chronic in the first place, if we can give people that care early on, then it doesn't become something that requires hospitalization. The less we deal with the primary care side of it now, the worse it's going to get. And those follow-on effects ripple through the system.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love it. From a standpoint of what we can do to address it, it's something that we had to do is really redesign the entire care strategy instead of just bolting on certain things. You kind of touched on that earlier. It's really rethinking primary care. How can we become, expansive? What can we do to increase access, lower costs, increase quality, all that stuff? And so, yeah, you're talking from the same book that I love to read from.
Well, I think that's really that's the key to it. The current primary care model, it's not working.
Very, very true. So outside of direct care delivery, what are some of the new or innovative options that exist for primary care?
Well, this is one of the areas where technology, that has existed maybe in other industries or ideas that are coming from outside of healthcare really have a lot to offer. The ability to, again, take tasks off providers' shoulders to make sure that whether it's an MD, whether it's a PA or an NP and an advanced practitioner is working at the top of their license, that they're doing the things that are, really essential to patient care and that they're not spending time on a bunch of other stuff. One of the big problems with primary care now is that we've put so much burden on providers to do a huge number of tasks that aren't patient care. They, are doing administrative work, they're doing follow-up. Even just writing notes is important, but can we take some of that off them with transcription, with NLP, with programs that are going to save some of that time and give them some of that time back. Right now, they don't have enough time even to practice with their patient panels, let alone, do the best job possible and all this other work. When you talk about tools that, automate scheduling, that automate notes, that help doctors automate, for example, insurance pre-auths, can take a huge amount of time, require calls back and forth, interfacing with the insurance company. The doctor doesn't need to be doing that. Or at the very least, they don't need to be involved in every step. Those things that aren't clinical work, that technology offers us the chance to resolve, all of that exists. What we need to do is really drive, first of all, confidence in them, that they're going to work, that they're going to do what they're promised to do, and also be willing to take on the responsibility to, like you said, rethink how a lot of these primary care, practice, hospital, system models work.
Yeah, I mean, everything you just went through is almost kind of the playbook that we did here. We have, we insure our primary care right now. There's 30 of them. They practice at the top of their license. And also, their max panel is between 500 and 700 patients. You have to spend we spend extra time with a patient. It's not 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minute, I call them chop shop appointments. No, we actually, these appointments, 30 minutes, an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes.
Yeah.
When you only have 500 patients or 700 patients, that panel works. And then you allow your primary care providers to practice at the top of their license as well.
Yeah, I mean, that level of panel sizes, with the current work burden, that's what enables a provider to have an 8-hour day, right? You can get to that with direct primary care, with a concierge practice. So many providers now, they're being given a 2,000, 3,000 patient panel expectation. If they're, expected to spend 2 hours a year with any individual patient, you're talking about, 11 to 15 hours a day. Yeah. It's just not doable. You've got to relieve some of that burden. And you can't just do it by, telling people that they need to see more patients. That's not the answer.
Yeah. No, very, very true. So what's missing from the modern implementation of primary care? What do you think?
Well, I think, like you said, one of the big questions that I have, and I think it's one of the things that I've really run into with the research I've been doing currently, it may be the case that our current model of primary care, which is basically one size fits all, we may not need that. The current expectation, for example, in Massachusetts, right? That you've got a primary care provider, you're going to see them fairly regularly, stay in touch with them. If you're a healthy, low 20s adult, maybe you don't need that. Maybe in that case, having access to telehealth, having access to a symptom checker that's going to let you know whether or not you're going to, need a prescription, something, that is going to have provider interaction, but it doesn't have to be face-to-face synchronous interaction. It has a remote prescribing component. Something like that might be what you need for a more severely chronically ill patient, somebody with a severe chronic condition. That is what they need. They need that face-to-face interaction. They need that constant update. But I think maybe it may be the fact that instead of a single primary care model, we need to branch out, say that different people need different styles of care, different groups of patients need different care, and that it's not, one size fits all.
Very, very true. I've kind of preach that all day long because I work with a lot of young companies and startups in Georgia. They're coming under our health plan, and we may do an annual physical for some of their younger employees, at least to get them started in healthcare. We would recommend they come in annually, but we recommend just do this, do it. If you need to do a web visit or schedule a web visit with your provider, text your doctor. Not necessarily be needing to use the system as much. Obviously, if you're a 23-year-old or a 25-year-old healthy individual. But I'll be honest with you, actually, I was in a meeting yesterday, I actually love the diabetic patients, because those, when you actually wrap around a care strategy for a diabetic patient, we're at like an 80% success rate. Of lowering costs, healthier lifestyle, a better lifestyle for them, quality of life for them, lowering the drug prices, drug costs. And it's just a well-balanced life for these people. And that's when you can achieve that, that's just, as a care provider, that puts a big smile on your face. You can do that at a lower cost than ever been done before. I love that stuff.
And that's the kind of thing that a lot of this new technology really enables. You can monitor them, you can keep track of how they're doing, you can keep track of their weight, their A1C, their blood pressure, their activity, their diet with some of the new, trackers that are out there. You can see how they're feeling in the morning versus the afternoon. You can get their feedback. You can actually involve them in their care, as opposed to just having them come in and, hand you a printout or a sheet that says what their glucometer was testing. And then you tell them, well, maybe you need to lose some weight. Have you thought about it? The more you can get them actively involved, the more you can get your patients, participating and being co-owners of their health, the better their outcomes are going to be. But the less involvement there needs to be, overall.
Excellent. And for those of you joining us a little late, my guest today is Alex Lennox-Miller from Chilmark Research. So let's touch base. I'm a policy guy also as a background. So let's touch a little bit on we got about 6-7 minutes left here. What are some of the HIT implications of the new proposed CMS reimbursements for primary care?
So the new CMS proposal is really interesting. There isn't a ton of detail yet, but what they're proposing is basically a capitated strategy. It's called the primary care first model. And it, according to what they've said, offers a lot of incentive for keeping patients healthy, keeping patients at home. This is, like we've been saying, exactly the kind of thing that these new technologies are great at. And investing in home care monitoring, in remote care, in enabling people to communicate and get feedback from their provider without needing an appointment, being able to track and have a system checking in on their vital signs or their stats. If they're post-acute or post-discharge, you can supply them with a blood pressure cuff, you can supply them with a heart monitor, you can be tracking a lot of this stuff and ideally start to identify changes before they get to the point where then they need an ED visit or a readmission. And those are the things that these new CMS proposals are really going to incentivize. That's something you can't do without investing in the technology, unless you're willing to have somebody on your staff doing it 24/7.
Yeah, I don't think that model. I think we've proven that model doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this next area is kind of, again, near and dear to my heart. And so I certainly want your opinion as well, because I had to go off and do this on my own. I had to basically strategy and work with the payers to create these new models for patients and providers. And it was a yeoman's job. But I mean, what's your position or thoughts around, what role will payers play in promoting these new models?
I think we're seeing payers take more and more responsibility and more of a role in this. You're seeing it in the mergers and the emergence of these, integrated networks where in a plan and a provider network are combined. But from talking to a lot of these vendors, from talking to the companies that are producing this stuff, payers are taking an increasing interest in monitoring their insured populations, in tracking the population health statistics, in keeping those populations healthy. And one of the things that sort of they're good at, because they have sort of a broader level of visibility in some areas, they can start to address some of the social or non-medical areas that maybe a physician or a provider doesn't get visibility into or doesn't feel comfortable engaging in, like food security, like housing, living conditions, physical fitness. They can incentivize or become involved in those in ways that improve the health of their population, that improve outcomes, but a provider might never have the opportunity, or because their resources are limited, their time is limited, they may not have the resources to deal with it. Because payers have literally, a vested interest in the health of their insurance panels, they want to track this stuff and they want to improve it. A hospitalization is very expensive. Keeping somebody at home is always cheaper. And if what it takes to keep them at home is, I don't know what the equivalent out by you is, but Stop and Shop supermarket does home food delivery. Buy somebody an air conditioner. Right. If there's a heat, if they have a history of, if they're elderly, if they have a history of heat stroke, those are the things that a provider system may not have the resources to do, but which are going to make a really significant impact.
Yeah, I remember seeing that example up in Oregon, now probably 10 years ago, where they're having a lot of heat strokes. And they literally, that was part of the plan, was to put air conditioners in these elderly people's homes to help reduce the heat stroke, because the air conditioner might cost you, $800 all installed, yet they go to the ER, the emergency room, and or die. That's what, the costs are dramatic. So it's a $1,000 investment to put an AC unit in.
And, as incentives to keep people at home, as incentives to keep people out of the hospital grow, they want to do that just as much as providers do.
Very true. So kind of closing up here in the next couple of minutes, but let's share some real quick best practices. That's what I love, not just on my radio show, but also in my think tank. So what would be a couple best practices that you would share around patient engagement with people that you share?
I think, and it came up earlier, shared responsibility, co-production of health is probably the single most important change that, for example, a healthcare system can engage in. The more you can bring people in as part of their own healthcare team, if you interact with them, if you interface with them, if they have responsibility, as opposed to just being a passive consumer of healthcare, that's going to make a huge difference in your patient outcomes. That requires communication. It requires, for example, building up patient profiles. This is something I've talked to a couple of healthcare systems, and that's what they're doing. They're trying to understand what's the best way to communicate with our patients. How do our patients respond best on an individual level? One person might respond best to texts, another person to emails, and another person to mail at their front door. But if you understand that, if you know it, then you can engage them. Then you can start to interact with them, get them involved, and get the benefit of that level of engagement. Part of that is if you're a healthcare system and your patient communication department or your patient outreach department doesn't share information and communicate with your primary care providers, you need to break down those walls. Too many healthcare systems out there are very siloed. There's no crosstalk, there's no cross communication, there's no cross planning, and it causes barriers in a number of areas of patient care, from testing to preventative health to just something as simple as, for example, a vaccination drive.
Well, here we're actually at time.
All right.
Yeah, no, you're great, Alex. I want to have you back. You and I could talk for a long time, and I want to have you back because there's a lot of areas where I want to really dive into around best practices, because your thoughts are spot on. I know you guys you got your finger on the pulse, so I'm going to certainly invite you back. But thank you very much for
Terrific.
the show, my friend.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Same here. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. And please tune in weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific to hear our latest shows. As always, you can track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor and use the hashtag ThisJustinRadio so we can respond to your comments from the show. If you missed any of this episode or want to hear more, all of my shows are posted on Apple iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Google Play, and TuneIn. You also can check out all the updates that we've launched at justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a terrific week.